3 of the 8 people who died when a police helicopter crashed into a busy Glasgow pub on Friday have been named. Gary Arthur, 48, from the Paisley area, was named by Police Scotland as one of the people who died in the Clutha bar. It is being reported locally 2 of the people killed in the crash were the helicopter's pilot David Traill, 51, and police officer Kirsty Nelis, 36. 3 people in the helicopter died when it hit the bar at about 22:25 GMT. 5 people inside the pub also died. A further 14 people are being treated for serious injuries. Emergency services have started to remove the remains of the helicopter. Sections of the rotor blade were hoisted away from the roof at about 10:30. Recovery operation. Police Scotland said in a statement that the body of a male has been recovered from the scene. The male has now been identified as Gary Arthur, aged 48, from the Paisley area. His family have been informed. Extensive efforts continue to recover the remaining bodies from the scene, but, due to ongoing safety constraints, this is likely to take some time. Mr. Arthur's daughter Chloe, 18, who has played for the Scotland women's football team and for Celtic women, took to Twitter to thank everyone for their kind thoughts and to pledge that she would make her much-loved father proud. The under-19 forward for Celtic and Scotland tweeted, "R.I.P. Dad. You'll always mean the world to me. I promise to do you proud. I love you with all my heart. Thanks to everyone who has tweeted me, text me etc. Means so much. I have the most amazing friends ever." Mr. Arthur was a regular on the sidelines watching his daughter play at matches, according to Celtic women's manager David Traill. He said, "It is a tragedy that Chloe's father was one of 8 innocent victims in this terrible accident. He was regularly seen at Celtic matches, watching his daughter." Chloe and her family have the full support of everyone at Celtic and across the women's game at this very sad time. A minute's silence will be held before Celtic's Scottish Cup tie against Hearts at Tynecastle on Sunday. Celtic FC and the Scottish Football Association also sent their condolences. Brian Docherty, chairman of the Scottish Police Federation, told BBC Radio Scotland the process of identifying and officially naming victims was taking time because it was a very difficult balancing act. He said, "There are formal identification processes to follow, so unfortunately we have to make sure we follow due process or we could leave ourselves being criticized very heavily by the families who have unfortunately lost a loved one in this incident." The BBC's Scotland correspondent Colin Blaine said emergency teams working through the wreckage had 2 main purposes. They wanted to be sure they had located everyone who might have been trapped inside, and they wanted to recover as much of the police helicopter as they could to help find out what went wrong. Aviation expert Chris Yates told the BBC that after the helicopter was lifted it would be moved to a secure site for detailed investigation. A special service to remember the victims of the crash got underway at Glasgow Cathedral at 11 o'clock. Police Scotland Chief Constable Sir Stephen House is at the service along with Scottish Deputy First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, Justice Secretary Kenny MacAskill and members of the emergency services. Glasgow City Council leader Gordon Matheson, Scottish Labour Deputy Leader Anas Sirwater and Shadow Scottish Secretary Margaret Curran are also among the congregation. Meanwhile, officers from Police Scotland's Major Investigations team have asked for any footage of the incident to be emailed to Glasgow helicopter incident at scotland.pnn.police.uk. Scottish First Minister Alex Salmond said the crash was the first major test of Scotland's new National Police Service and National Fire and Rescue Services. "I think, along with their colleagues in the Ambulance and Heath Service, everyone knows and understands just how magnificent that response has been," he said. In a separate inquiry, the Air Accidents Investigation Branch, AAB, will try to establish what caused the crash. Its team will be assisted by experts from Eurocopter, which manufactured the EC-135T2 aircraft. Professor Graham Braithwaite, an air accident expert at Cranfield University, said the crash investigation could take more than a year. He said, "If it's the Air Accidents Investigation Branch investigation, then they're doing it, not to allocate blame or liability, but to try to find out how to make these aircraft safer in the future, so that can take many months." David Larmount, from the aviation news website, Flight Global, said the crash looked likely to have been caused by a mechanical failure. "We can deduce a fair amount about the nature of the problem that the pilot faced by the fact that this aircraft ended up hitting a pub," he said. If the pilot had had any control at all, he would have aimed it away from a building. The 3 occupants of the helicopter who died were 2 police officers and a civilian pilot. Helicopter operator Bond Air Services will assist Police Scotland and the AAB with their investigations. Whoosh sound. Prayers will be said for those affected by the helicopter crash at Glasgow's Church of Scotland Cathedral in a service attended by Deputy First Minister Nicola Sturgeon and Scottish Justice Secretary Kenny MacAskill. Reverend Dr. Lawrence Whitley said, "The main purpose of the service is for Glaswegians to come together and express their solidarity. Glasgow is a remarkable city. It has tremendous heart, and often Glaswegians respond to situations with their heart before they respond in any other way." The Clutha, in Stockwell Street by the River Clyde, was packed with about 120 people listening to live music when the helicopter crashed onto the roof at about 22:30 on Friday. Eyewitnesses outside described how the aircraft fell like a stone. Others described people working together to get out of the pub, aided by others who were in the area. Alina Coop, who was in the pub, told BBC Radio 5 Live's Stephen Nolan, "I heard this whoosh sound like when you take the seal off something, then this cloud of dust came down and, within 5 seconds, nobody could see anything." She said she had a torch with her which she used to guide people out of the pub. "The dust was choking, it burned our throats," she added. People were running about and panicking while everyone was trying to help get anyone out. Stand-up comedian Gary Faulds, meanwhile, told BBC News he had dropped his mother off at the pub shortly before the accident. "My mum had just got inside and was hanging her coat up in a little alcove by the left door as you go into the bar when the crash happened. She said she thought it was a bomb going off because you never imagine it is a helicopter." Both his mother and his aunt, who had 20 stitches to the back of her head, had been treated, and released, from hospital, he said. "I've heard about the deaths, so I guess they were one of the lucky ones," he added. Black Day. A total of 32 people were taken to hospital, 18 of whom were later discharged. Health officials said 14 were still being treated for serious injuries, which ranged from chest injuries, head injuries, long bone fractures and lacerations. Scottish First Minister Alex Salmond described it as a black day for Glasgow and for Scotland, but highlighted the instinctive courage of ordinary Glaswegians going to assist their fellow citizens in extremity. Prime Minister David Cameron also paid tribute to the bravery of the ordinary Glaswegians who rushed to help. Within the city, efforts continue to help survivors and the bereaved. Glasgow City Council is operating a family reception centre, at 40 John Street, to help those affected. The Police Scotland Casualty Bureau number is 0800 092 0410, for those concerned about relatives. Elsewhere, flags are flying at half-mast on Scottish government buildings.